As we get into our Rotoworld headlines here for week number 2. He, of course, did not practice in week 1. How are you feeling about him? He had back-to-back full practices on Wednesday and Thursday. We haven't got, as of this taping, we haven't gotten the practice report for the Ravens. But the expectation here is that J.K. Dobbins is on track to make his debut this week.
Which is great news. I, long-term, love J.K. Dobbins. Short-term, I would not even play him this week looking at the Miami defense. And here's my other question, Matthew, that's very significant. They lost their second-string left tackle against the Jets last week in Juwan James for the season.
Yeah.
If Ronnie Stanley, who they've very delicate with, slowly ramping up, he hasn't played a lot the last 2 years. If Ronnie Stanley's not good to go, they're on their third-string left tackle. The offensive line had its highs and lows against the Jets week 1. Kenyon Drake got 11 of those 15 carries for the offense. I like J.K. Dobbins' usage long-term and where that line will be, but against a good Miami team, this feels like a wait-and-see to me. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on sort of what your running back situation is. I mean, I currently, and as we get through the weekend, I think we'll get more clarity from Harbaugh and the beat reporters in terms of what kind of workload. They may even say, hey, he's going to be active, but we'll put him on a pitch count, as it were. And so I currently have him as a running back 41. My guess is he probably sneaks up into the high 30s, with more confidence that he's going to play. But I think he's a touchdown-dependent flex play is what he is. If you're starting him, I agree with you, because I think he's never been a massive workload guy.
No.
Like, he's always been a 12 to 15 touch guy, but their offensive line is so good. They're in scoring position so often, so usually there's some touchdown equity there. We don't know what his passing game usage was. Kenyon Drake actually looked pretty decent last week. And so what's his workload like? First game back, is he only getting like 8 to 10 touches? You're banking on a score, which, by the way, he absolutely could get.
Yeah.
You're bank on a score there. As you see it here on your screen, for those listening at home, you're not seeing it, but we're looking at the Ravens rushing stats in week 1 against the Jets. Kenyon Drake, 11 for 31. Mike Davis is 2 for 11.
Fumbled one of those.
Lamar Jackson was the second leading rusher, 6 for 17. L. Jackson is going to get his as well. It's interesting. Baltimore opened as a 3.5-point favorite here. Feels like Miami. I know some of the sharps are on Miami. Like, I feel like this could be this, especially when you think about the offensive line issues that the Ravens are dealing with. The game's in Baltimore, but this feels like more of a pick'em to me than the Ravens getting points.
I agree, a pick'em and an under. I think that the public is just looking at Tua and going, after watching, listen, Tua's better than Joe Flacco. But Joe Flacco got devoured by that Ravens front, bringing pressure. I think they're looking at Tua and fearing the same thing. This might be a game where Tirico and Jalen Waddle get 8 screens apiece.
Yeah, 100%.
And I wouldn't blame Mike McDaniel if that's the route he goes.
Yeah, so the Dolphins, who played in week 1, the Dolphins played the Patriots. Really good rushing. I mean, for all the things that the Patriots offenses run, they usually can run the ball.
They stop the run and run the ball.
Yeah, 5th fewest rushing yards allowed in week number 1. Yeah. The Dolphins, against a Patriots team that wanted to run the ball. Let's move on to Indianapolis now, and this one's a big one.
Scary.
Right. Michael Pittman missed practice on Thursday, and so I believe, and someone get in my ear and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Michael Pittman was limited on Wednesday and then downgraded to...
that's correct.
Yeah, and downgraded to no practice on Thursday, and that's always a red flag when somebody goes the opposite way that you want on a practice report. After practicing at least somewhat on Wednesday, didn't practice out on Thursday. Again, let's see what happens on Friday. I'm being told I did have that right. There you go. First for everything.
Bat 1,000.
Right, yeah. Broken clocks right twice a day. Boy, oh boy, if Michael Pittman misses this game, a tasty matchup against the Jaguars, Connor. By the way, if Pittman's out for this game, give me the Jags at home to win outright.
Okay, you like the upset.
I like the upset.
I don't think that's crazy at all, especially how slow the Colts offense started. I mean, they had 3 points in 3 quarters, and then they turned it on in the 4th. It was panic time against the Texans, and it was like, oh, we're back. This is regular season. We need to score. I think you made a great point about Pittman. The limited practice Wednesday and then no practice Thursday. When that's a 35-year-old vet, it's considered a rest day. That is not him. So something reacted the wrong way. So even if he does gut this one out, you just wonder where he is status-wise.
It's going to be a hot September in Jacksonville. It's going to be muggy, sweaty, be awful, on the grass. Like, this one just doesn't, bad juju, bad vibes from this one. If Michael Pittman were to miss this game, you're not getting anywhere near Matt Ryan. It'd be obviously a heavy Jonathan Taylor game. I could see Nyheim Hines, who had 6 for 50 in week 1, being even more involved in this passing game. I can't imagine you want any Colts pass catcher outside of maybe Hines, the running back, like you're not starting Ashton Doolin or Paris Campbell or
the Mo Alley Cox prayer.
Right, exactly.
The Hail Mary.
I'm obsessed with Mo Alley Cox, but even I'm like, wait a minute there, and right. Alec Pierce, you're staying away. Just quickly, I'll give you a couple of wide receivers out there in about 50% of leagues in Yahoo if you're looking for someone to go pick up. Russell Gage is interesting to me at 40%, although we're going to talk about Tampa Bay in a second. DJ Shark is available in about 47% of leagues. He had a nice game. That should be a high-scoring game between my undefeated first-place Commanders and the Detroit Lions. Speaking of my undefeated first-place Washington Commanders, Jahan Dotson had the 2 scores. Big game.
Out there.
He's out there in about 60% of leagues. And hey, Robbie Anderson, the ghost of Robbie Anderson, made a big appearance.
The Baker feud is no more.
It would appear not, and they're playing the Giants, so you like that matchup as well. So those are some quick guys there. Let's move on, and this one didn't feel like a big deal, but now it seems like it might be a big deal.
Yeah. Alvin Kamara did not practice Thursday, rib injury. Obviously, Kamara's not a guy that needs a full week of practice all the time, but this sounds like it's leaning more towards a will not play. And then you have Mark Ingram sitting there, who's also banged up.
He was listed as questionable. The fact that Kamara, they said, he played the game, but then they were like, oh, it's just a little rib injury, who's fine. But then he didn't practice Wednesday, didn't practice Thursday. And also telling, the Saints signed Latavius Murray, who they obviously have history with, to their practice squad. So again, you sort of look at that. Why are you signing Latavius Murray if you know you've got a fully healthy Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram? You're not.
Yeah.
So there's clearly at least there's some concern, Connor, in terms of running back depth in New Orleans. Mark Ingram's out there in a ton of leagues. Mark Ingram needs to be rostered in 100% of leagues.
Okay.
Because Alvin Kamara is rostered in 100% of leagues, right? And if Alvin Kamara misses, we expect it to be the Mark Ingram show. He is trending towards playing. Again, got in limited practice each last 2 days. He's listed as questionable. We expect him to. Last week, he filled in for Alvin Kamara 2 weeks, weeks 10 and 11. And in those 2 games, he averaged 18.1 fantasy points per game. He got 40 touches, 221 scrimmage yards, and a touchdown. Now, they're playing Tampa Bay. That is a very tough run defense to go up against. Mark Ingram's game is north-south. That is exactly what the Buccaneers defend well. So I'm not sitting here saying, I think he gets 18.1 fantasy points. But do I think he could possibly fall into the end zone? Do I think he's going to get a decent enough usage that he could be a viable flex, a viable RB2 if you're sitting there desperate because you lost Kamara and you also you don't have somebody else.
Right? He can still catch the ball. It's not like he's completely useless in the pass game as well. I like fall into the end zone. It sounds like a drunk stumble across the goal line. And hey,
we are at the happy hour.
6 points. It's Friday.
I have to tell you, people have stumbled out of this bar, and by people I mean this guy. Just so you know. All right. So that's Alvin Kamara. We will see. Just so you know, he did not practice in the portion open.
It's one to watch today.
Absolutely, that's a huge one. Pittman and Kamara to me are the 2 biggest ones. Sigh relief out of Tampa Bay. After Julio Jones and Mike Evans did not practice each of the last 2 days, both back at practice today. Todd Bowles saying all wide receivers have a chance to play, but we got this alert from the Fantasy Life app. Shout out to the Fantasy Life app. Free to download. Just try it out. If you hate it, delete it because it's a free app. But I'm just saying the alerts are second to none on the Fantasy Life app, fantasylifeapp.com. I'm a company man. My company. All right. But feels like Godwin, very unlikely to play. Evans and Julio, though, have a chance here.
And Julio looked really good in the game. He had, obviously, fresh legs, much needed. I think, here's my take on the Julio situation. Yeah. I think at this point of his career, the Bucs signing him almost as their 4th wide receiver, he's not a guy that's going to practice a lot this year. So when you see the did not practice Wednesday, and even when you see it on Thursday, he's a rare exception that you don't panic. You go, let's see if he can do the walkthrough Friday. Let's see where he's at. And if they're down somebody else, you could fire him up. This is just the pathway when you roster Julio Jones at this point.
Not basically a 19% target share last week. He had 2 carries in week number 1.
He looked explosive.
He had the 2nd most snaps at wide receiver behind Mike Evans. And then, by the way, go to my love-hate. Julio Jones on the love list because think about how this game plays out. It's going to be Marshawn Lattimore matched up against Mike Evans. He has really had success against Evans. I think they've played 9, off the top of my head, I think they've played 9 career games, and in 7 of them, he's basically shut down with Mike Evans. You're probably starting Mike Evans because I don't know they have better options, but he's not he's not a top 10 guy for me. He's probably more of a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3, because if he comes in less than 100% and he's got Lattimore, what you're basically hoping for is a jump ball touchdown, which he can get.
Sure.
Like they run those red zone plays for him. He's a big, tall guy. You can't teach 6'7". He's got as good a shot at a touchdown as any wide receiver in the NFL every single week. But that's what you're hoping for. So I do think the middle of the field, the underneath stuff, Julio and Russell Gage, I think that's Lenny will get his as well. But I think this is actually a good Julio Jones game. Julio in the NFC South. He knows these Saints well. He on the turf.
It's early in the year.
It's early in the year. He's still healthy. Yeah, I like Julio this week.
On the flip side, not healthy. He feels like ever. Kadarius Toney right now.
I took a screenshot of this tweet that I saw just before we went on air, and I want to read it directly. So this is from at DDugan21. Covers the Giants for the Athletic. Does a great job, Dan Dugan. And so he quote tweeted himself. So the first tweet he said was, Daboll said Kadarius Toney's hamstring tightened up during yesterday's practice, same leg that was injured during camp. So then Dugan quote tweets himself and adds this. There have been 19 games during Toney's career. He's been on the injury report in 14 of those weeks. Of the 5 weeks he wasn't on the injury report, he left 2 of those games with injuries. Like, we get the talent, but the best ability is availability, right? How many times do you hear that?
Yes.
And now he's got a new coaching staff and a new regime that's just like, dude, you ain't our guy.
They drafted his replacement, Wan'Dale Robinson.
1,000%.
On day 2 of the draft.
By the way, and think about this: if you're Brian Daboll, you're like, look, I've been an assistant coach for, I don't know, what is that, 400 years?
A long time.
I think it was 21. So what? He's finally getting his shot. And the Giants are like, look, we got to. He's coming over with Joe Shane, like his guy, and like we're gonna give you 5 years. Like we know Gettleman totally screwed the cap. So you're like, all right, yeah, this is a year I'm gonna take it on the chin. I get it. But then they're like, what? Hey, we're in this game with Tennessee, and then Daboll's like, screw it, we're going for it.
Yeah.
So right, and they convert the 2 point. Now they're 1-0, and now they sit there and like, hey, well, holy crap, we beat Tennessee on the road. We're 1-0. Wait a minute, now we're at home to Carolina.
Winnable game.
We can beat Carolina.
Yes.
And then they look, oh, who do we got next week? We got the Cowboys without Dak Prescott.
The Cooper Rush game.
The Cooper Rush game. Like, all of a sudden, you start sitting there going, you know what? Maybe, hey, okay. And the guys in the locker room start buying in. And the whole point of that is like, I ain't counting on you, Kadarius Toney, because every time I've counted on you, or the previous regime has counted on you, they ain't here anymore. So the report was that he was practicing with the third string, right? He played 7 snaps in week 1. He is welcome to Dumpsville.
Yeah, there's no reason to roster him.
There's no reason to roster him. Like, when you can't,
Richie James.
Return
specialist.
Richie James, generally a special teamer in his career, 5 for 59. Kenny Golladay played ahead of him. Sterling Shepard, 2 for 71 and a touchdown. I think he's really interesting. He's out there in a bunch of leagues. He came back healthier from that. He came back quicker than we thought.
Yep.
Sterling Shepard's always been able to play.
Daniel Jones really likes him, too. Looks his way a lot.
Yes, they definitely have a connection. Then Wan'Dale Robinson, he left that game early. He just had the 1 reception for 5 yards. He's missed practice again this week. I don't know that you can trust any of those guys against Carolina, except maybe Sterling Shepard in a deeper league. A 12-team league where you're playing 3 wide receivers and you have a couple, you didn't have Keenan Allen, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, he's in the 40s for me. But I do think Sterling Shepard is an interesting kind of guy. I've picked him up in a few leagues because, you're right, there is talent. There is a history of fantasy production. There is a connection with Daniel Jones. And you look at the rest of the guys. Look, we love Wan'Dale Robinson here. Patience on Wan'Dale Robinson. Better days are ahead for Wan'Dale Robinson. I would not drop him just yet. But Kadarius Toney, welcome to Dumpsville. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.